Good morning. Thanks for joining us at our end of week webinar, our regular end of week webinar. For the last couple of weeks, we have been spending time with our government representatives. We started with our federal government representative, Member of Parliament Paul Manley, 2 weeks ago. He was joined by lawyer Greg Phillips talking about employment law for employers and workers. Well, Paul walked us through some of the federal programs that were being unveiled at that time and gave us some details. Then last week, we were pleased to have Sheila Malcolmson, our MLA, join us to talk about some of the provincial programming. And she was joined again by Greg Phillips, who did a repeat performance of his letter of the law on employment and where employers stand and where workers stand. This week, we're happy to bring it to the local level where the rubber hits the road, as they say. And we have Mayor Leonard Krog, City of Nanaimo, and City of Nanaimo Councillor Ian Thorpe, who is also the chair of the Regional District of Nanaimo. And we're going to get started right away since we had a slight technical delay getting started here. And Mayor Krog, I'll ask you to take it from the top, and I want you to sort of give us some background. What are the moves the city is taking during the crisis? We hear daily updates from Ottawa and Victoria, and I know staff and council have been very busy. I've been working with both staff and council over the last few weeks. Take it from there. What's your update, Mayor Krog?
Thank you. Firstly, my apologies. The technical difficulties were on my end, and I feel badly about that. But you can't make a boomer into a zoomer that easily. Having said that, look, I encourage everyone to go to the city website, which is updated regularly. I think we've had over 300,000 hits or whatever they call them. I am doing usually 1 or 2 videos a week commenting on various things. Numerous press releases have gone out. I think the most important things that certainly members of the chamber would want to hear are that we have firstly already announced that we're extending the payment period for water, sewer, garbage bills from 30 to 90 days. There'll be no penalty. We are having a special council meeting on Monday to discuss various financial strategies or scenarios that are going to emerge. We still have until May to actually set our taxation rate. Unlike the provincial government, which has to bring in its budget by March 31st, we have until May, which gives us an opportunity to consider what the province has done. Many of your members are obviously well aware of what the province announced yesterday around school taxation, including giving the city the opportunity not to remit the school taxes it collects on behalf of the province until December 31st. That means we have to try and ensure we have it, but it gives us more time and allows us use of that money because cash flow is quite an issue for many municipalities. Now, I say with great respect and gratitude to previous councils that we are in pretty good financial shape. But nevertheless, we have authorized the borrowing of up to $50 million to deal with any cash flow issues that might arise over the next year, year and a half even, or longer. As many of your listeners will know, we get the bulk of our money in June or very shortly thereafter in the first day or 2 of July when the taxes are paid. And those taxes are paid obviously by financial institutions on behalf of people who have mortgages. They are paid directly by homeowners. Some people defer, but that's the bulk of our dough. And we have to ensure if that money doesn't come in this year or there is a deferral of the time for payment, then clearly that will have an impact on our cash flow. In terms of overall debt for the city, I'm happily remind everyone that based on what the law provides, the city has borrowed only 11% of what it could. So we have an 89% window, if you will, for capital expenditure. And I think it's fair to say, and if Ian grimaces when I say this, then I know I've said something wrong. And if he smiles, then I know I'm on the money. I think there is a general consensus around council, as per your letter this morning, Kim, thank you very much on behalf of the chamber that I reviewed this morning, and as per the community roundtable. I think it's fair to say we are committed to ensuring capital expenditure continues in order to stimulate our local economy. I think it's a given amongst most people that capital expenditure is the best expenditure for the economy. It generates the most revenue, employment, recycles money, and in fact generates the most tax revenue for all levels of government as well. So we're certainly committed to that. Now, we're going to be looking at the property tax rate. As I said, we're going to be looking at penalties, what happens with them, do we defer them, etc. All of those things are under consideration. But we have also taken some very difficult measures that I have to mention. Decisions were made that have impacted over 200 people, from full-time to part-time to contract workers who work for the city, to reduce our expenditures in this difficult time. Relative to other communities, you know, I think we're in line with the kind of impact on employees and contractors, but it is a hard pill to swallow for the people on the receiving end, and it's a tough decision for the city to have made. I think that's probably enough blabbing for me for now, and I'll certainly give Ian an opportunity and thank him again for taking on the chairship again of the regional district on behalf of everyone.
Thanks very much, Leonard. We're going to have some questions in a bit here. I've got some, and some have started to come in. For those of you who are in the audience right now, if you want to hit your chat button, you can send a message or send questions to us. We'll moderate those questions and get back to both Mayor Krog and Chair Thorpe. But I want to get a bit of an introduction from Chair Thorpe right now, because as well as being a city councillor and veteran city councillor at that, you're also chair of the regional district. So I wonder if you could bring us up to speed on what's happening at the regional district level. Maybe start by giving us the framework, some context around the relationship between the city of Nanaimo and the regional district of Nanaimo, and what some of the roles the RDN play that the city don't play. Thank you.
Certainly, Kim. Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me this morning. It's a pleasure to be here and be on with His Worship Mayor Krog. I know many of your listeners will be aware of this, but I think there is, in the general public, some degree of confusion about the roles of the city of Nanaimo as compared to the regional district of Nanaimo. The first thing I'll say is that I am very pleased that we cooperate so well together. We have a lot of interests in common, obviously, and the cooperation at the staff level and I think the political level between the city and the regional district has been excellent. For those who might not be totally aware, I'll just quickly fill you in. The regional district is a local government federation of 4 municipalities. Nanaimo is by far the largest one. Approximately a total population of 180,000, growing quickly. The 4 municipalities, Nanaimo, as I mentioned, we also have the city of Parksville within our region, town of Qualicum Beach, and the district of Lantsville. We also encompass 7 electoral areas. The farthest one south is the Cedar area of Cedar, South Wellington, Yellow Point, and Cassidy. Think of Nanaimo Airport area. Working our way north, we have Area B, which is Gabriola Island, as well as DeCourcy and Mudge Island. Area C is a large one, taking an extension, Nanaimo Lakes, East Wellington, and Pleasant Valley. We have representation from Nanoose Bay in electoral area E. Area F is Coombs, Hilliers, the Goats on the Roof, Arrington, Whiskey Creek, and Meadowood. And further north, Area G, French Creek, Paray, San Paray, that is, and Little Qualicum, and all the way north to Area H, which is Bowser, Qualicum Bay, extending up to Deep Bay. So it's a very large area of land. It encompasses some big urban centers, specifically Nanaimo, but also a lot of rural population. So our challenges are a little bit different, and our main focus in the regional district is to supply regional services to those outlying areas. We have some overlap with the city of Nanaimo, but we also focus on regional services such as wastewater treatment. The regional landfill is the RDN's responsibility in Cedar, and of course transit, and that is an RDN responsibility, which I'm sure we'll talk more about later.
Yeah, actually, did you want to get into that transit subject right about now, Ian? Specifically, an interesting note that Transit has now added a route to Duke Point, or is that an extension of an existing run already? How does that work, since that's our ferry now?
Yes, and I think transit is one of the real essential services that the regional district is supplying and continues to supply to area residents, including, of course, the city. We've put, first of all, measures in place to protect the health and safety of our drivers and the users of transit, enhanced cleaning and disinfecting of buses, restricting the number of passengers so that there is physical distancing. And as you probably know, we're asking people to board and exit using the back door of the bus, except for those who have wheelchairs or strollers and have to use the front. With the ferry service at Departure Bay shutting down, at least for the short term, we've used our resources to be flexible and shifted to a shuttle route out to Duke Point, meshing with 3 ferry sailings a day. And that runs from downtown Nanaimo through the South Park area out to Duke Point. So we're really pleased that we're able to offer that service. I will say that transit ridership overall is down. And the other thing that I need to point out is that with our adaptation to the COVID situation, we are not collecting transit fares. So the RDN is providing this service, but we're not getting any revenue from it. And that's something we have asked the government, the provincial government, to look at addressing. We have not heard any response at this point, but we continue to operate the service, and I think it's a very valuable one.
Yes, undoubtedly. What are the ridership numbers like? Do you have a report on that yet, out to Duke Point?
I'm sorry, we don't have that yet. It's early days, but we're certainly going to be monitoring that, so I can get back to you when we have those numbers.
Fantastic. Mayor Krog, we've got one question specifically for you that's come in now. I've got a couple more, but I think you're going to have an interesting answer on this one. And the question is, how will the pandemic affect applications, for example, rezoning? And that also would include permitting for building and for development.
That's a delightful question. I'm thrilled to hear it. The city has moved to the new age, so to speak. You can submit your plans electronically, applications, those kinds of things. It's been a great impetus to make great strides. I give Dale Lindsay and his shop credit for that. Look, as I remind everyone, and it's on the city website, the doors may be closed, but the city is open for business. Staff are working, some from home, some obviously still on site, and clearly the parks people. But yes, for heaven's sakes, don't stop. If you're out in the development community and you want to move forward with something, keep moving forward. We are here to serve you, and it's most important, I can't emphasize enough, that we carry on construction in this community and development.
Yes, I think we're all in agreement on that. And with that, maybe you can recap some of the highlights, some of the main points that have come out of the last 2 council meetings, and maybe some of the items that are on the agenda for this Monday's council meeting as well.
Well, this Monday, obviously, we're going to be looking at several scenarios. I do not expect decisions to be made on Monday, but what does the tax rate look like? Do we lower, do we raise, looking at it over time, considering, you know, our general 5-year plan. I've already mentioned, of course, the deferral of the water, sewer, garbage bills. We are also looking at the various scenarios as to how long this continues, because do keep in mind, for instance, as much as we have impacted 200 people who worked for the city, we are also have lost all the revenue that comes from our arenas, from our pools, all of those things. The impact of the virus is across the board, and we are not exempt from it. I think it's fair to say, are pursuing what we think is a prudent course, though. We're examining the timing of construction, which we've talked about. We've also encouraged and are working hard with the Health and Housing Task Force, which we've revived, whose activities we'd basically suspended given the virus. We revived it to try and address the problems with the vulnerable and homeless population. There is a great fear that if there is a significant outbreak of the virus in that community, it will have a dramatic impact on our healthcare system. And much of the good work that the province is undertaking in freeing up beds, I believe Nanaimo Regional General Hospital is only at about roughly 60% occupancy as we speak, in order to ensure that beds are available should the virus strike us in a significant way. I don't think I've got anything else to say along those lines at the moment. Ian is free to jump in. I told him he'd have a backup for the mayor today.
Thank you, Leonard. I will jump in. I want to go back to your opening statement because you stole my line. Of course, it's not mine, but I think we're all using it. The doors may be closed, but we're very much open for business, and that is the same at the regional district. And the RDN certainly remains active in continuing to ensure that local building is going to happen and that we're able to achieve those objectives. Building permit applications are being processed through an online portal. A lot of our work has moved to a more digital format. Builders are able to attend at RDN offices by appointment to discuss plans, and our building inspectors continue to work directly with the industry. So we're continuing with numerous capital projects. I want to point out a key one is the wastewater treatment plant on Hammond Bay Road, which is a $50 million project. It's well underway, but we're certainly continuing with that. And we are supporting the local trades and the local economy by doing that. Contracts from local suppliers continue to be honored to provide services in areas such as our parks, which remain open, of course. I mentioned the transit. Future land development applications, we're still getting those. And in fact, there has been really, to this point, very limited slowdown in those applications, which I think is a positive thing. So we are trying to keep the wheels of business turning and supporting that, of course. As far as future budgetary expenditures, it's sort of a catch-22. I think we recognize that we want to encourage the economy, and that means injecting money into it. But where does the city and the regional district get that money from? And the fact is it comes largely from taxation. So there's a balancing point that has to be struck there. From the RDN's point of view, any decisions regarding utility bill deferrals, future tax decreases, those are subjects for future staff reports and discussion at the RDN level. We're not there yet, but it's very much on our radar. And I will just add one more thing, that the city of Nanaimo, through its property tax notices on behalf of the province, collects the tax money for the regional district. So when the city tax bills go out, residents notice that there is a levy for the regional district as well as for schools, for the hospital, and other places. So we depend on the city to collect our tax money for us and then give it to us promptly. Thanks, Leonard.
Thank you, Ian.
As long as we're ending that sentence talking about taxes, one thing that a number of businesses and chamber members have come to us asking is what buttons do we have to press to possibly get to the point where commercial ratepayers can pay in installments, just like a residential ratepayer would pay. It would certainly help with the cash flow for businesses who will be probably closed right up until tax payday in June 30th, July 1st, whatever the exact date is. Do you want to touch on that, Leonard?
Yeah, Kim, you're referring to the process whereby you can pay your tax in advance, basically. So starting July, you would be making payments that would see you by July of 2021 have paid your tax bill, and that's certainly available for residential owners. I think that's probably good. I suspect, and Ian can may be able to assist me here, that might require provincial legislation. I don't know. If it's city, I mean, I think it's something we should do. I can say that. I can't speak for council if in fact it's not something I've ever given any thought to be honest with you. But I think it's a sensible way to go. Most of us can handle small payments. It's like the old joke about how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time. And if it's done over a period of time, but it's not the same as the concept which some people are advocating, which is that people be allowed to pay their taxes that were due this July, that will be due this July over the coming year, which is not the same concept.
You mentioned that may require provincial intervention, and we have a question from a viewer. How is coordination with the province working, and are you having dialogue on what safely phasing back of services would look like?
I don't think it's fair to say that there's any dialogue around phasing back services per se at this juncture. Most of our discussions with the province are around taxation. They are around the homeless and vulnerable population and how to deal with those health issues. As I didn't mention, I mean, the city is now providing water and some porta potties around town to assist the homeless population to try and maintain a level of cleanliness and sanitation. And certainly around the housing issue, as many of your listeners will know, and MLA Malcolmson may have confirmed last week, you know, there's 518 units either under construction or in the pipe, so to speak, in design, et cetera, for the city of Nanaimo, which will all be provincially supported housing. We're seeing major projects proceed, the Brecken one, the Rose Hill, and Terminal Avenue, and of course, out at Buttertubs as well. We're seeing significant provincial investment, which is helping things roll along. But in terms of discussion around how the world is going to start to get back to normal and when, I can't honestly say those are the subject of discussion now. I'm certainly hopeful they will be, because I think it's time for us to celebrate today, as is any day, the fact that on Vancouver Island, we have done a very good job of flattening the curve. Our numbers speak volumes in terms of the low infection rate, the relatively low hospitalization rate, and a good recovery rate. Our numbers are very small, certainly in comparison to the Lower Mainland.
I imagine this has a lot to do with group effort on everybody's part to stay home, stay healthy, but at the same time, stay active. I wanted to ask you, Ian, and then get a response from the municipal level, Leonard. But tell us about the parks and trails that fall under the regional district and what the RDN has done there to assure that we have, we can recreate safely.
Yes, thanks, Kim. Good point. And we're very proud of our regional parks and trails system. And it's, I think, even more recognizable now in this time when people are feeling the need when they can to get some fresh air outside and get a little bit of exercise, but at the same time, maintain that physical distancing. About a week ago, the province announced the closure of all provincial campgrounds. There was some confusion around that. Regional parks and regional trails are still open. And in fact, we encourage people to get out and use them. But of course, at the same time, please be courteous and maintain that physical distancing. If you see somebody coming towards you on the trail, move over, go single file, as we were talking about before we went on air, and just use that common courtesy to maintain spacing. But our parks are being very well used. We have deployed some staff to act as eyes and ears in our parks and trails. In a sense, they're bylaw officers. They don't have power to enforce or ticket, but they are there to educate and remind people of proper process and procedures when they're outside using our facilities. So playgrounds might be closed, and that's probably a good thing, but parks and trails are open. And I'll mention one other thing while we're on that topic, Kim, and that is our move. Although our recreational facilities such as pools and gymnasiums are closed, we have rejigged our recreational services by offering more online virtual fitness options. And there is a program through our website called Rec Connect, which I encourage viewers to look at for some in-home exercises if they don't wish to get outside in the fresh air.
So what's that website again? What's the URL for that? Yeah.
It's just rdn.bc.ca.
Okay, right through.
There's good links from there, Kim. We have a special band across the top of our website for COVID-related issues, and then everything else is on that website. I think it's a very good site.
Mayor Krog, do you want to address the parks recreation?
Yeah, and I'll jump in following what Ian's just pointed out. Get to the city of Nanaimo website. Same thing, program is being offered online. For those of the more technically proficient than your current mayor who had trouble getting on Zooming today, that's important. We also instituted very early closure of our facilities in order to protect the public. And so one of the last public events I can recall actually attending was a photo op with the Nanaimo Clippers team just a couple of days before we really got into the thick of this crisis. And it broke the hearts of those young men who were so anxious to play hockey. But it was a necessary step, and it certainly had its impact. We haven't closed the city parks, and I say yet, and it's not that we're planning to, but certainly as long as the public behaves as it has done in a fairly reasonable manner in most occasions, we're going to continue to keep our parks open, because Dr. Henry has indicated and encouraged everyone to recreate in the fresh air and get out there. We did launch back on April the 9th, though, a special City Park Ambassador program. And that involves having staff out at our two busiest parks, Westwood Lake and Sutton Maffeo, giving people advice, suggestions, and ensuring that they observe the physical distancing, which is just crucial to containing the potential spread of the virus. We may see an expansion of that program, because certainly those are two very well-used areas. Sutton Maffeo, of course, being in the center of the city's walkway, which is one of the most beautiful possibilities for a little fresh air in the city of Nanaimo.
I noticed last weekend, I drove past Maffeo Sutton Park, and I saw parks workers. I presume they were parks workers with their high vis vests, but one had a hockey stick and one had a pool noodle to show people how far apart they should distance themselves. And I thought that was a pretty interesting idea, and a good way of expressing in good humor what people should be doing. The appropriate Canadian measure is a hockey stick, I guess. Everybody knows how long a hockey stick is, pretty much. And so it's easy also to visualize how far apart we should be. I was mentioning to Councillor Thorpe earlier that I had to scratch my head going to a regional district park last week for a walk. And there were two ladies walking down the trail, social distancing from each other, although they were together, but causing everybody else to not be able to social distance, because they took either side of the trail to themselves, and you had to sort of skinny yourself down the middle of the trail.
Kim, I just want to, sorry to interrupt, I just want to follow up on what Mayor Krog said, and that is, I think so far we really do have to give ourselves credit, our citizens credit, for working hard and taking this seriously to try and flatten the curve. And I think at this juncture, especially with the weather improving, there's a tendency to maybe slack off a little bit, get a little bit complacent, want to go outside and have those family barbecues and get-togethers and play some beach volleyball or something. And I really stress to people, please maintain what you've been doing, maintain the physical distancing. We still haven't gotten past the point where we can relax and think that we've beaten this virus. And you asked earlier about communication with the provincial government, and the mayor and I are certainly in constant contact with the representatives from the government. The initial focus, of course, was on dealing with the COVID crisis and the healthcare issues. But I think the government is already hearing very strongly from us that beyond that, they have to start to look to the economic recovery, which we're going to have to address.
That's right.
Health, if I may interrupt quickly, Island Health has had two conferences with Island MLAs, MPs, and mayors and chairs already, and we just had another one this week. Every Thursday, Minister Robinson, responsible for municipal affairs and housing, has a conference call with all the members of the Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities. She does all of the areas for the province, and we're certainly one of them. And so we get updates on the potential of the things that have already happened and been announced, if you will. And there's an opportunity to ask questions and raise issues as well. So there is communication going on. But as I say, your question is very specific around when we might start to see a transition back, and I'm not aware of any conversations along those lines. And I think Ian has been quite right. It's hard, but we have to continue to stick to the rules until such time as we can safely move forward and start. I won't say a road back to normal, because the world is going to be changed by this. I think a lot of people are going to be working from home who had never thought they would be. A lot of things are going to change, and hopefully some real innovation is going to come out of this, what is for many people a daily frustration and tragedy in some respects.
Yeah, I think there is some positive points around all of this because of the innovation that we've been we've had to take on. Certainly, the city's providing so many services online now has taught us that we don't have to have those offices open maybe as much as we would, and a lot of us are learning. I've been working from home for this is the end of my 5th week now, and so learning new technologies to keep business open and operating. I fear for those though who cannot just convert themselves to a virtual world and still successfully conduct business, and I worry especially about our retail community. Of course, we're all well aware of what's happened to our colleagues in the travel, tourism, transportation, hospitality industries, which have just been crushed by this. But retail is very obvious to us as we drive through our downtown streets or our shopping centers and malls and just seeing empty parking lots, closure of doors, essential services only. That's really crushing for the Chamber of Commerce to watch go by. What is very interesting from our perspective is that we've had very few people say, call us and say, that's it, we give up, we're done, we're closing, we're dropping our chamber membership. We're getting so much resilience and positive feedback from businesses who are hoping that the day after tomorrow is going to be, we're going to be back, we're going to be doing stuff. And certainly a lot of them trying. It's not easy to open an e-commerce site and put your store online. It costs money, which nobody has right now. And it takes time, which we're all out of that as well. So maybe a word of optimism and positivity and hope for our wonderful local business community.
Let me offer a word of optimism. And you mentioned money, Kim, and I'm going to slap you a little bit when I say this. The fact is, not everybody is without money in our community. There are many of us who are of an age where we have savings, where we still have reasonable cash flow. And I encourage people to do something as simple as, instead of obviously having the opportunity to go out to dinner, don't just order the food potentially, go and buy some gift certificates. I use the Krogs as a personal example. I won't mention the restaurant. I'm very tempted to. And I won't mention the number. It was reasonably substantial. We bought some gift certificates the other day, and the owner then in turn handed me another 50% gift certificates and said, get them out into the community as a way of promotion. So when that restaurant opens for business again, there's going to be quite a few people who are going to have gift certificates in their hands ready to walk through the door of that restaurant. And in the meantime, that restaurant has cash flow. And I think there were examples like that where we can all give a little if we've got. And look, this is not going to last forever. The fundamentals of our economy were essentially very good before this virus hit. Construction in Nanaimo was through the roof. Retail was doing well. People were spending money. Travel agents were busy. People were traveling, etc. That, I think, can return reasonably quickly. I give full credit to the federal and provincial governments with the programs they've announced in terms of putting money into people's pockets. The trick is for all of us now is to get the money from, as I say, my wallet into your cash register. Although nobody uses much cash anymore, I appreciate that. But literally, that's what we're talking about. And I believe that's possible. Businesses responded in innovative ways, as you've already described, Kim. Even the farmers market has moved to an online service of distributing locally grown food. Whoever would have thunk it? But it has happened. This is still an incredibly desirable part of the world to live in. We have worked hard to flatten the curve, particularly in Vancouver Island. Our amenities, what attracts us, the beauty, the people, the quality of life, The quality of life may have changed a little bit, but essentially it's still there. And so we have every reason to be optimistic, in my view. And as I say, for those of us who can, go out and spread your money around as best you can. If you see a place open and it may not be where you normally shop, for heaven's sakes, go in and buy something. Buy gifts for other people. Cheer up, folks. There's a multitude of ways to get rid of your cash in our society. I mean, I appreciate the casino's not open for those of you who are incredibly optimistic, but you can get out and spend your money in other ways. And I think the Chamber has done a wonderful job of encouraging people already and talking about resilience in our community and being positive about Nanaimo. And we have every reason to be positive. And I'm not just saying it because I feel it's important to say it or it's a job to show leadership in tough times. I say it because I believe it about this community. Out of these crises are opportunities. We have to work a little harder. We have to be more innovative, but we're seeing a lot of that in ways that had not been expected before. We can adapt, and we are.
We are adapting, and we're we're keeping businesses alive by our adapting so well. We're running 5 stories a day out of our Stay Strong Nanaimo news package, and those 5 stories change every day, and they tell more stories about how companies are innovating and coming together and creating new opportunities for shopping. Certainly, the Island Roots Farmers Market is a really great example. This was only their 2nd week of operation. I went online, and probably a third of the products and the vendors were sold out by the middle of the day yesterday. So that's a fabulous high note, I think. And we're seeing many others. I take my 2 or 3 trips downtown every week just to see who's doing what. I drove past, we noticed the cupcakery shop opened last Friday on Fitzwilliam Street. So sure, let's grab some cupcakes. My wife went in and came out with 3 boxes. We dropped one off with a friend, put one in the freezer, and I inhaled the other box myself over the course of the Easter weekend. So yeah, if you're going out and you see a shop that's open and you can safely social distance or physically distance yourself, go in, spend some money, spread it around, take advantage of takeout night on Wednesday. Phone up a local shop. And the idea of the gift certificates for restaurants, that's really going to give them maybe not as much cash as they need, but it gives them hope for the future. And that's a very important one. We got a final question in here coming from Angie Bernard, and she is talking about a website called adoptmyshop.org. That's adoptmyshop.org. And I won't go through all of her comments here as we're running close to the end now, but take a look online there and see what adoptmyshop.org is. Network Hubs Foundation, the West Coast Foundation, is partnering with Daily Hive and IT in Canada to deliver that. So take a look at that. Parting comments, Ian, from you, please.
I just wanted to jump in and echo the mayor's eloquent optimism. And I think we have to remember that Nanaimo and the surrounding region in central Vancouver Island is probably the best place to live on the continent, if not in the world. We're blessed with a strong economy. We have shown our resilience through this challenging time. It's brought out the best in people in terms of being innovative, in terms of being generous and helping each other and being kind. And full credit to our citizens for doing that. And credit to people like yourself in the Chamber with the Nanaimo Strong initiative. The Harris Foundation is stepping up, and we're seeing a lot of positive things come out from this challenge. So we just have to stay the course, help each other. We're all in it together, and we'll get through it.
Yeah, thank you for pointing out the Nanaimo Foundation. They are part of the concert on tomorrow. So
Yes.
Rather than give you somewhat perhaps incorrect information or the wrong link or anything, if you go to Nanaimo Foundation, you can get the link to watch the live concert this weekend that they're producing with David Foster, the Foster Foundation.
Right.
And I believe that Victoria Foundation is in on that too.
That's correct. Check TV, 8 o'clock.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Check TV at 8 o'clock. That's very good. And now over to you, Mayor Krog, if you would like to pass on some parting comments.
Ian summed it up very well, as he always does. We have everything going for us. And, you know, I grew up in a household where the stories of literally the First World War and the Great Depression and the Second World War were not real history to me. They were the living memory of my family. And I reflect on that upbringing and the tough times they faced. This is not going to be as bad, and this is not going to last as long. Of that, I am confident. The fundamentals, as I say, are there. We won't be back tomorrow, maybe not next week, maybe not next month, but I think there is light at the end of the tunnel. I think we've heard some positive remarks from the Premier. I think the Prime Minister is reflecting a more upbeat attitude in terms of the length of this. As Ian said, we got to stick to our guns, socially and physically distance ourselves, but if we stay strong, particularly over the next little while when there's a temptation to slack off and we can keep those numbers coming down, then it gives government the opportunity, the Solicitor General in particular, to start to relax rules to allow us to do things differently. I mean, I heard some very positive words the other day from the Governor of California who said, look, maybe you're going to go into a restaurant that will only have half the tables and the person serving you is going to look like they're from an alien movie because they'll be all covered up in gear, but you'll still be going out to dinner. You'll be able to go into a shop and the selection will be there and maybe the cashier will look like they're an alien too, but you'll have that opportunity and it is coming, it will return, but we have to in the meantime find ways to get our money out, as I say, from your wallet into somebody else's till. So let's work at it and let's work at it together. I really want to thank the Chamber for this. I want to thank the positive attitude of many of the people in this community who've chosen to be innovative as opposed to remain ignorant. They have moved forward. God bless every one of them.
Thank you so much for those words. I really appreciate it. It's very inspirational. And I thank you for staying so positive, both of you. It's very important for everybody. And I knew I shouldn't have brought up the Rock for Relief concert without looking at my notes from Lori at the Nanaimo Foundation, but we got it all wrong. It is in fact tonight at 8 o'clock.
Yes.
And it's called Rock for Relief. It's a living room fundraising concert for Vancouver Island supporting the Nanaimo Community Response Fund. You can check out that fund at islandresponsefund.ca. You can go to the Nanaimo Community Foundation website and tune into that tonight. David Foster, Catherine McPhee, Randy and Tal Bachman, the tenors, Trevor Guthrie, and Lauren Spencer Smith from Nanaimo, the new rising superstar coming from the newest rising superstar coming out of Nanaimo, as well as Jesse Roper, who we all know, Carmena, Aaron Pritchett, Catherine Calder, and many others, and special appearances by Steve Nash, Silken Lohman, Rick Hansen, Jim Treliving, and other notables, it says. Broadcast without commercials on Check. Locally available on Shaw Channel 6, Blue Sky 109, Telesoptic 121, as well as Check News Facebook page and YouTube channel. So that's all for today, folks. Thanks very much for joining us. We'll be back end of week next week. We'll post the exact time and any guests that we might be having, but we're amusing with going on air and giving ourselves haircuts live. So we'll see if that comes off by next Friday. By next Friday, I don't think I'll have any choice. I'm going to have to do something. So maybe I'll be the star of the show next Friday and you can watch me butcher my hair. Anyway, thank you all very much. Have an excellent weekend. Stay strong, Nanaimo. And thank you, Ian. Thank you, Leonard. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Kim.